Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought we would talk about some ways that it would be nice for Gaijin to increase rewards in the different game modes in War Thunder. One of the things that is obvious nowadays is there are very specific ways of playing the game which get you obviously the most rewards, and since there's a decent amount of people who are focused on grinding, I thought it would be best if we could actually change these things up a little bit, instead of just doing the same stuff over and over again and increasing the monotony. So why not add some more factors to try and improve this? If you have any ideas, I would love to hear them in the comments section. But let's get started. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe. Let's go. The first set is for aviation, and I think the first one is pretty obvious. One of the things that people may have noticed is in the missile era of War Thunder, you have this little kind of tagline which turns up, which is called missile evasion. This happens when somebody launches a missile at you and you are able to successfully evade it, whether it is using countermeasures, whether it's maneuvering, whether it's doing whatever. Now, this gives you an opportunity to know when a missile is not tracking you anymore, therefore you can move around and do well. But one of the things it doesn't do is it doesn't reward you. It doesn't give you anything for either pulling defensive maneuvers or, once again, using countermeasures or doing anything in a defensive manner. And this is kind of a problem that War Thunder has, and this kind of shifted about a year or 2 or 3 ago, where everything is now offensive. Basically, you need to do offensive actions in order to get rewards. So with the missile evasion thing, it would actually be a very nice thing to use to be able just to get something back in order to actually promote defensive play instead of running at the enemy like a headless chicken. The only thing that actually promotes defensive play is more survivability play, and that's because you get increased rewards the longer that you exist for, but that isn't really how it works in realistic, because a few seconds isn't going to make really a big difference, but, you know, a bunch of minutes will make a difference if you also do actions during that time, which have to once again be offensive actions. So for me, when looking at stuff like missile evasion, I would like it to give a bit of reward just to promote defensive posture. Then also just defensive maneuvers in general. This was something that used to exist in air, which should exist again. It was something that was removed when it shouldn't have been removed. It was probably removed because of the fact that people were botting it, and it seems like, at least nowadays, when it comes to War Thunder, they have better techniques of being able to detect botting, so why not just punish them and then give people back what they actually had before? What you would have is you used to get an area bonus. So if you stayed close to an enemy, e.g. defensively flying or fighting them in that area, you would actually get some score from it, meaning that if you're engaged in a dogfight, it would actually beneficial for you to continue the fight instead of once again go for the just aggressive maneuver over and over again in hopes of catching it lucky. Because if you didn't catch it lucky, then obviously you died. But with the defensive maneuvers being added back to this means that there is a reason to continue to fight, continue to stay alive, and to continue to go forward. But unfortunately, those were removed, so add them back in. The other part of it that I think would be really cool is type-specific rewards. So we're having a bit of an issue right now, especially in the higher echelons, but this is also happening in the lower echelons, where you have these types of vehicles, such as jet fighters, or strike aircrafts, or bombers, or whatever, and many of them are just getting crucified in their role because they do not fit specifically the meta of what's going on. Examples of this are most of the Japanese bombers, which have very light bomb loads. If you want to have a look at strike aircraft, stuff like the Me-410s, which struggle with this, Do-335s don't really do well in the strike aircraft role. Jet fighters, such as the MiG-27M, which isn't really a jet fighter, it's more of a bomber. And then on top of that, for other types of vehicles like torpedo bombers, which once again have limited armaments, so therefore they're not very good in a lot of situations. What I would like to see is enhanced rewards for vehicles based on their specific type. So if you are a jet fighter, or if you are just a fighter, then you would get increased rewards for destruction of enemy aircraft. But you would also get diminished rewards for doing the other parts of it. So instead of just blanket buffs or blanket nerfs across the board for these types of rewards, why not have it so they are tailored to the specific vehicles? Therefore, you can have specific vehicles with different playstyles based around rewards. This means that different types of play would be kind of pushed forward and also would have a pretty good time, instead of just people using multi-role vehicles to be able to do everything to maximize the research of the game, which is really just nuking the actual, the competitive part of the game, because there are too many people who are just focusing on just research and getting to top tier, which means that everything is just a bee's nest at the moment, has been for a few years, has been pretty poor, and basically has come along because they started adding premiums, which are just multi-role vehicles instead of others. So it's now time to change the research system to benefit other playstyles. For ground, there are several things they could do to increase rewards, and the first one is just drone spotting. So we have scouting, right? And scouting is one of those ways where you can easily get into aircraft, and also it gives a vehicle something easier or better to do instead of just front-on-front combat, which can be a problem for many things. And now we have drones for those light vehicles, which I think is generally pretty interesting. But what I would do is I would actually remove the drones from the light vehicles and add them to the SPGs and SPHs. Therefore, what they could do is they could add something to the game which would actually benefit these vehicles instead of depreciate them, which is what's been happening over and over again. And with the drone spotting, if a spot is on a vehicle and that vehicle dies, therefore you get RP. Simple as that. RP and SL, so just giving SPGs and SPHs a way of garnering some rewards which they wouldn't already have. Then blinding opponents with smoke shells. I think one of the things that in War Thunder is incredibly useful, which is just not used enough, is the ability to be able to blind the enemy. If they're in a power position, you can just throw a smoke shell at them, and then you can move to the next area and then try and counter them and then see what you can do from there. But you don't get any rewards. You don't really get anything from blinding opponents with smoke shells. Instead, what you get is the ability for the enemy to know where you are, because they can hear where you shot, and also to also move around the smoke, since smokes work both ways. It means that the person can reposition as you are going towards them too. But it would be nice to actually get just a little bit of RP and SL for using tactical kind of setups, and that to me is one of them that would be pretty cool. Also, bringing back limited points for tanking hits. I think this is very important, especially for specific vehicles which are designed for tanking hits. If they don't get this, then they are kind of worthless. And now we have this meta which is only specific heavy tanks are even worth playing, because medium and light tanks are just so much better, because they just get so much more rewards and also are just way more mobile. If they brought back the limited points for tanking hits for specific types of vehicles, e.g. stuff like heavy tank destroyers and also just heavy tanks, it would be fine and it would work very well. The other one is just increased rewards for SPGs. Talked about it many times. SPGs are just the worst class in the game. There is absolutely no real point in playing them compared to many others. There's a lot of dud SPGs in the game. It would be nice to see them kind of revitalized, and one of the ways to do that is to increase their rewards, kind of like what they did with a lot of naval vehicles. And in Naval, I feel like the rewards generally okay. In Blue Water, I don't really see too many issues. Maybe you could add something to the reconnaissance aircraft to make it better. But the major problem with Naval is Coastal. Coastal super needs an increase in rewards, just because there is a kind of fundamental problem with rewards and how Coastal works. Coastal is an incredibly high impact high-octane, fast game mode. Most vehicles don't last very long, they don't have a lot of survivability, and also, they can generally do a lot of damage, so it's more like whoever shoots first wins. There are some vehicles that aren't like that. Usually they dominate the meta, but most of them don't at lower BRs. Now, one of the problems is Gaijin added these set of rules for research a few years ago, which meant that time was a big factor in terms of getting rewards. They also reduced a lot of time of certain battles, but that's a different story. With Coastal, the problem you have is because of this, and because of the fact you don't last very long, instead you just do a lot of high damage and a lot of kills in a very short period of time, that time element kind of screws you because it means that you don't get the rewards that you used to. So for me, what I would do in Coastal is I would remove that time-relevant set of rules and instead just focus just raw on damage and score and nothing else. Because otherwise, these vehicles are going to take years for people to grind out, as somebody who's been stuck on 2.7 British vehicles for about a year and a half now, just trying to grind through them just to get them done. And this is a problem across the board with a lot of coastal vehicles. I would definitely feel like increasing the rewards is the way to go. As always, if you have any suggestions, make sure to let me know, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.